This is Casey, and this is Casey's roadmap to success. This is a bully stick. Casey wants me to let Casey have it, but I want Casey in the shot, so I'm going to hold on to it, and eventually he's going to just start chewing on it on his own. All right, so in this session, we started out talking about, I mean, he has basically, he does some demand barking. The Guardians have some structure in place, but not a ton, so we really focused on the Guardians in this case. One of the first things he had a submissive peeing when I first came in, and then we went down in the basement and he just barked. He didn't want to come down there. Came up and I gave him a bully stick, but he wouldn't take it from me, but it kind of placated him a little bit. Now, one of the things that I did do was I didn't try to do this. This is what all of us try to do to make friends with a dog. If a dog is being standoffish for you, one of the best things you could do is ignore the dog. If it comes near you, don't pet it, don't look at it, don't talk to it, just ignore it. That, after a while, the dog's like, I feel, okay, so this guy's not trying to get anything from me. And then the dog just starts hanging out more and more, and it's just, okay, I'm comfortable. He's proving to me through his actions that he's not trying to grab me or snatch me or do anything that we don't want. So I did that for about 10 minutes. I gave him some treats, and it wasn't until about half an hour into the session before I actually touched him for the first time. I waited for him to approach me like he did then, and then I petted him. So if you have a nervous or fearful dog, he's not a super fearful dog, but if you have a dog that's a little standoffish, wait for them to come to you, and then kind of hold your hand out halfway between them and you. If the dog sniffs you, licks your hand a little bit, then walks away, that's a success. Next time they come back, do the same thing. And wait for the dog to kind of, when you hold out your hand, they come to you, and then maybe nudge you a little bit, and then you can kind of reach for them. But if a dog ever turns its head to the side, that's the dog's way of saying, I don't want you to touch me. The more that the dog thinks that I'm listening, the more confidence it has, and the more trust, and the more relaxed it's going to be. All right, so he is exercised. His guardian takes him out to play fetch, essentially, in the backyard twice a day for about 15 minutes, but he's a year old, and he's a working breed, and he's a herding breed. So he probably needs closer to an hour and a half of exercise every day. So what I usually recommend people do is start an exercise journal. Keep it for about a month. And I suggest some creative ways of exercising the dog. One of them is I throw treats up and down the stairs. Another one is I pull out a laser. I like to play fetch, what the Guardians here are already doing. Another one we can do is scent games. We have Casey outside the room. We hide 5 treats. At first, just one around the corner from that table, one around the table leg of your desk, one around the trash can, one around the ottoman, and one around over here. We use chicken liver so it has a strong smell. And when we have him come in here and we start sniffing around for it, say hunt. And every time he licks one up, say hunt or seek or whatever the word you want to mean. This is called scent games. And a dog's nose controls 60% of their brain, and it's very stimulating for them. It can be very draining for them. Even though they're not really actively moving, they're internally using a lot of activity, and that helps drain some energy. So what I usually, for the stairs, I usually throw the treat down the bottom stairs. When he goes in and licks it up, I come up with a funny word that means go down the stairs. I like using fun words because dogs can read facial expressions. Only animal on the planet that can do that. And so if I throw the treat down the stairs and he runs down and gets it, and I say, Argentina, and I have a friend from Argentina who laughs every time I see it, that motivates him to want to do it. Then I call the dog back up, and I give it another treat, and this time I might say Canada or, you know, penthouse or something like that, another funny word. And then I would count that as 1. Going down the stairs and up is 1. And the first time I would do it with an empty stomach, keep throwing those treats until Casey's like, you're crazy. I've been down there 93 times. I'm not going down there anymore. Now we know what the maximum number is. He probably needs to be exercised about 50 to 75% of his maximum number. I'm guessing about 5 minutes will probably do it. So if we spend 5 minutes on the stairs 3 to 5 times a day, plus we take him out for fetch in the backyard for a 10 or 15 minute session, and then we'd maybe take him out for a walk or 2. Now, and the idea is you play around with the number and the frequency of the exercises, and at the end of each day, you give him a letter grade A through F. If it's anything other than A, the next day, play around with the elements. Give him maybe, instead of 20 up downs on the stairs, we do 25. Or if it's a really low grade, instead of doing up downs the stairs 3 times a day, maybe we do it 4 or 5 times a day. Also, before we have neighbors come, friends come over, have them chase the laser or do something like that, give them 10 minutes to recover before they knock on the door. That's a great way to set them up for success. We have a neighbor next door that he likes to bark at, and their dog likes to bark at their neighbor, and they go back and forth. I'm going to talk about some suggestions for that in a minute. But if we are going to let the dog outside, if we exercise him first, and then give him 10 minutes to recover, then let him outside, we've taken that top level of energy off, he might be less likely to bark at the neighbor dog. But what do we do about it barking at the neighbor dog? The neighbors don't have a bad relationship, but this has kind of been a point of friction a little bit. And it's natural. Everybody gets frustrated when you hear a dog barking, and one dog barks, the other dog barks, and well, whose dog started it? Well, arguing about it's not going to really be very productive. So what I find is just coming up with solutions. So when I was in college, we had people got these bamboo reed matting. They're really just blinds. and we would put them in, and you kind of pull a string, it would roll the whole thing up. And we would use those on our closet door because we didn't have an actual door in the closet. Well, I've seen people do those, and they're actually usually about 3 feet wide, which is the same height of the fence. So we just attach it to, we have a chain link fence in the backyard, so we attach it there. That can block him from seeing the other neighbor dog and the neighbor dog from seeing him. Now, something else that we can do is the more proximate, the closer a dog is to something, the more reactive they're going to be. If somebody, is at the end of the block saying they're going to beat me up, I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep my eye on them. They run towards me with their hands in the air. I think, well, we're going to come to fisticuffs pretty quick. So the closer they get, the more reactive and defensive I'm going to get. So in this case, both these dogs probably think the other dog is in their territory. So they're barking and just arguing at each other, and they're never going to make any progress. So the distance is, with the chain link fence, we're both right up against the fence. We're as close as we possibly could be. And so what I recommend for some of my clients is to create a temporary fence 5, maybe 10 or 15 feet away from the actual fence line. You can go to Lowe's and Home Depot. They have these, it's not chain link diamond shape, it's square shape. But it's basically, it's a little bit flexible. It's not as rigid as traditional chain link fencing. But if you get posts, you can zip tie it to the post and you can create a little barrier. So maybe he's set 5 feet, 7 feet, 10 feet away from the fence. So if we have the bamboo reed matting on the fence, and then we have this so the dog can't get within 10 or 15 feet of the fence anyways, increasing that distance could have go great ways towards helping the dog stop reacting towards one another. He's also likes to herd cars, and that's problematic on a walk. So we may set up a follow-up session to do some counter conditioning. If we do, the same technique I'll use for the car would be the same technique that actually can help him see the other dog, is instead of barking at the other dog, when the other dog appears, that means I'm about to get a treat. Can we let the other dog out more often? And you can really, instead of right now when the other dog's out, they bring their dog in and vice versa, well, we can set it up where he can go out there and just be happy that that other dog's there, just by using a little dog psychology, positive reinforcement, some counter conditioning. All right, now getting back to what we worked on in this session, we talked a little bit about rules. Rules are really important for dogs, especially when you have a herding dog or younger dogs. You can be, if you're a parent, you can be friends with your kids when they get to a certain level of maturity, but when they're younger, you have to be the authority figure. You try to be friendly at times, but you have to be that authority figure as well. I think that because of being a herding breed and also a little bit of confusion about the leader-follower dynamic, I think that he thinks he's either the same as his humans or he has more rank or authority than them. So one of the ways that I like to flip the leader-follower dynamic is by incorporating some rules so the dogs act like leaders every time they're correcting the dog or enforcing the rule. Now remember, dogs learn through repetition, consistency, and good timing. You have 3 seconds to correct or order a dog, and anything your dog is doing in your presence that you don't specifically disagree with, you're saying I give 2 thumbs up to. So if he jumps up on the couch, you have to immediately correct him for that and cause him to get down. Now, I don't like to force a dog on the couch. What I would do is when he gets on the couch, I would like lure him to touch on my hand and hold my hand off near the floor, or throw a treat on the floor when he jumps down and gets it, say, lick it up. I would say the word off. Now, some people use X mats. They're the letter X. It looks like a letter X with a frame around it. You can fold them in half, and you unfold it. There's little white plastic spikes on them. Sounds medieval. It's not going to hurt. It'll not feel good for the dog to sit on there. It's not going to cut them. But you can put one on each cushion of the couch here, and so that Casey can go, oh, it's taken. Oh, it's taken. And we want him to get out of a habit of jumping up on the couch. Now, there's a couch here in this room, and it faces the front of the house. The guardian has learned to keep him off this couch because he stands up here and barks at people that come by. He thinks cars are out of control and in danger, and he needs to correct them. That's why that's the herding mentality. It's very common for herding breeds. So if he looks out and he sees a car coming by and he barks at the car and then the car continues and leaves, he thinks that he made the car leave. And that becomes a self-rewarding behavior. So a lot of times we do something called maintenance, where we'll cover the bottom part of the window with like maybe white paper. Still lets a little light in, but he can't see in from his perspective, but we're taller than he is, so we can still see. Still lets the sunlight in, and we don't have to keep our blinds drawn. I had one client, they looked like a shut-in because all the blinds are drawn because the dog's going crazy every time it saw something outside. When they did this, they're like, it's a game changer. We get sunlight, it's nice. We have nice views. We like looking at the trees in our neighborhood. To flip the leader-follower dynamic, I went over a number of rules. One of the rules is he's allowed on some furniture, but on others, I would suggest no furniture for at least 66 days, or as long as the problems are still going on. Casey, let's not mess with the camera. Come. That's passive training. We'll talk about that in a sec. So other rules would be eventually when he's allowed to be, when you're done with these things, If you want to let him break the rule, it's when you invite him up on the couch, you make the decision, he never makes the decision. And it's only for good behavior. So invite him up and he gets down to get a drink of water. When he comes back, he would need another invitation to get back up because it's your couch. You're just being generous enough to share it with him. If he gets up there on his own, he thinks it's his couch. Your nails are a little bit long, buddy. Yes, Dad's going to have to cut those a little bit more. You do have a couple. You have some translucent and you got some black ones. Okay, so also shouldn't be allowed in the kitchen when we're cooking. Shouldn't be around the dining room table when we're eating, or anyone who's eating anywhere. That's very disrespectful in the dog world to be within 7 feet. Even if they're not actively begging, the presence is just inappropriate. Yeah, that's a good sit. Try to avoid saying good sit. Try to say just sit, and I'll talk about that in a second. Another rule is I make the dog sit every time we let it in or out of a door. I go to the door and I say sit once. If he sits within 3 seconds, then I open the door. If he doesn't, I walk away and I sit down somewhere, act like I'm preoccupied with something else, and I wait 1 minute. Then I go back to the door and I tell him again, sit. He doesn't sit by 3rd second. I walk away, sit down somewhere, crash. And then I wait for 2 minutes. And then I come back and I give him another 1 opportunity to do it. If he doesn't do it this time, I walk away for 4 minutes. I keep double the length of time. But boy, as soon as he sits, when I say sit, I fly that door open as quick as I can. Then make sure I go through it first, unless you're just letting him out. Now, the guardian also is starting to work on teaching him to not go through the door without permission. The way that I do that is I go to the door and I break it down in individual steps. I show the guardians how to do this, but basically just go to the door, reach for the handle. Or I'll go to the door and tell him to sit first. And make sure he's sitting far enough away where the door can open without him having to get up. Then once he sits in an appropriate spot, reach for the handle. As soon as he gets up, pull back, tell him to sit. If he sits, then you continue. If he doesn't sit, we walk away from the door completely. And then eventually he'll stay there and he'll stay seated, or he'll sit down again right away. Then we reach again and further and further. Eventually I'm touching it, jiggling it. And anytime he gets up, I stop. When we reset, he's got to sit. Then I start swinging the door open. At first just an inch, then a half inch, then an inch, then a little bit further and further. And anytime he gets up, I stop and we back up to the previous step, practice that one over again. So by breaking things down in individual steps and helping the dog practice 1 step at a time, we can teach the dog this is what is expected, this is how I want you to act throughout the whole process of this particular activity. Most of us try to teach our dogs how to behave in the moment. What's the worst time to learn? Learning how to drive your car at 5 o'clock traffic on the busiest intersection in town, you're guaranteed to make a mistake. But, off. Learning in a parking lot, there's no pressure. So I can build up my skill set and my confidence, and when I'm confident enough, then I go to a street with no cars, then a street with parked cars, then a street with cars that are moving very slow. And so I gradually increase the level of intensity or difficulty as I feel appropriately prepared for that. Okay, so remember when you're eating, do the warm-up, do the practice, microwave some roast beef or some bacon. And then pretend like you're cutting it up, and every time he crosses the boundary, you get up and reset it using those escalating consequences I went over. Same thing with the kitchen. So again, we're gonna help him practice doing this, and then when he sits or lays down outside the boundary, then we're gonna do the actual exercise. I also showed, I went over the escalating consequences, hey buddy, and I also went over a leadership exercise that I just demonstrated. I didn't have the guardians do that themselves. Normally do that, but we ran a little bit long in the session. So if you do want to do that exercise where we drop the treat on the floor, go to my website, click on Dog Training Tips. On the right side of the page, type in leadership exercise. There'll be a bunch of videos. I've shown a lot of people how to do it. It's a wonderful way to help you practice those escalating consequences. It helps the dog see you acting like a leader and helps you practice communicating with the dog non-verbally in ways the dogs understand. Let me see. We also went over petting with a purpose and passive training. Petting with a purpose is if the dog comes up and nudges me or barks at me or paws at me for attention, he's giving me an order. Instead of doing what he wants and validating the order, we're giving him a counter order. Tell him to sit or lay down. If he's already sitting, I can come and sit over here. This can be passive training. Come. I'm going to talk about this in a minute. So this is petting with a purpose. Sit. Sit. So I'm going to give him a command. I say it twice, once during the command stage, once during the reward stage. When I pet him, I'm going to pet him under the chin when all things are equal, because when a dog feels good, its nose is in the air. And I say the word sit, not good sit. So I talk about that later, and this is later. So dogs typically hear the first word that you say. So if you say good sit or go that or the dog's name this, the word that they're listening for the most is the word that's least important in the equation. So get out of the habit of saying good dog. A lot of people, they say sit, the dog sits, they say good dog. Well, good dog doesn't mean sit, it just means I'm happy with you, but I'm already petting you, so I'm indicating I'm already happy. So the dog sits, pet it and say sit. When it lays down, pet it and say crash or down or whatever your word is. When it comes to you, pet it and say come. Name all your individual toys. Every time he brings you the zebra, call it Stripey. Every time he brings you the elephant, call it Trump. Name all your individual toys. Every time he brings it to you, pet him and say the name of that command word. Then eventually you can later on, you say, go give me Trump. And he comes back and brings you, this little elephant. Now you can have a little better vocabulary with your dog. Same thing with potty training. Every time he's out there, when he starts to pee or poop, say the word potty, and then within 3 seconds of it starting. Then when he gets done, call him over and give him another treat and say potty. So now we associate the word with the action and then the reward with the command word. And after a while, all three of those things become synonymous. So that's a little bit. I've already transitioned to passive training. Passive training is just waiting for the dog to organically offer you the behavior on their own. I'm trying to get you to do a touch. Touch. Now that's a little bit different. That's more of a command. But every time he comes to me, I'm going to pet him and say come. Every time he lays down, I'm going to pet him and say down, or whatever the command word is. So passive training is waiting for him to organically offer you the behavior. Petting with a purpose is when you want to pet the dog or the dog is asking you for a pet. It has to do something to pay for it to earn it. Now remember to use the watchword paycheck if you suspect someone's petting without a purpose. And I usually say recognize or testify if the dog is doing something I want. So come. Even though he just went here, he did come to me. So I'm just waiting for him to do it. Passive training is a wonderfully easy way to train your dog if you pay attention enough to do it. So testify just means you missed an opportunity to do it. Come. All right, I'm trying to think what else. Make sure the guardians are eating something before they feed him. Eat something in 5 or more bites. Crash. That's passive training. Make sure let me see. Don't let him go up and down through doors ahead of you or up and down stairs or things along those lines. Remember, any attention is good attention for him. So if he's barking, ignore him, especially if he's demand barking at you. Because if he's barking at me for attention, every time I say shush or correct him, I'm going to make it worse. Also, if he's fearful, don't pet him. You can make a dog more fearful by petting him when they're fearful. Same thing with stressed, anxious, aggression. If he's freaking out when cars come by and you're petting him, it's okay, buddy, relax. Oh, so you want me to attack the car and herd the car. That's how he hears it. It's different than what we think. So the more that we can get into a habit of rewarding desired actions and behaviors, the more we're petting with the purpose, we're going to kind of focus on doing it at the right time. But if he is nervous or anxious, you can lay your hand on him and let him know I'm here to comfort him without amplifying it. But as soon as you start petting it, you're going to be amplifying it. The guardians do a really good job of not getting him super excited when they come home. A lot of people, we come home and the dog freaks out and we pet them. We're going to make them more excited. But look for other things as well. If he's excited for food, if he's excited for jumping up on the bed or whatever it is, make sure you wait for him to be calm and balanced before you have him do that. All right, this is a little dog crack. So it's, yes, look at that. Oh, drop. That's one of the first things we went over. So sometimes we'll take things away from the guardians. The guardians kind of, I think, might have confused them a little bit with leave it and drop. Leave it means don't pick it up in the first place. Drop means drop what you got. So to teach a drop, what I do is I wait for the dog to have something in their mouth, and I just go and touch their nose with a treat. Now, he didn't have anything in his mouth there. But I don't say drop. I just wait for the dog to do it on its own, and I reward after the fact. Sometimes when we're telling the dog to do it, oh, so you want something from me. So as long as I have this in my mouth, then you're going to still want something from it. Once I drop it, I lose all my leverage. So in this case, we don't ask him to do it. We just say, we just hold it right here. And as soon as he drops it, then we pop in his mouth and say the word drop. And if you do that enough, you have to do it when he's got something in his mouth, but avoid taking things away from him. The more you do that, the more he's going to continue growling or staying away from you or getting up and run away, because you're proving to him that you don't trust him to drop it, that you're trying to take it or trick him from doing it, which is very common for people to do. All right, let's see if we can get you to turn around. Come here. Sit. Well, this handsome fella is Casey, and this is Casey's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.